Hello and welcome to Film Peaks, where we investigate where film peaks or valleys. As usual, I'll keep this spoiler free, but I will include a riff section at the end where I show my score and give some thoughts. I do that because my score is a review of the quality throughout the film, so some people might view that as a spoiler. Anyway, let's get into it. We're in a pretty unique situation right now. It's May, but I feel like we're kind of having an October style release of horror films every weekend. We have Deep Water, Affection, Obsession, Corporate Retreat, Passenger, and one of the two that I'm most excited for, The Backrooms. And of course, the subject of today's video, Hokum. A horror writer visits an Irish inn to scatter his parents' ashes, unaware the property is said to be haunted by a witch. Now, there are a few things that got me pumped to see this movie. One, I saw the poster or trailer of like a guy in a white mask that looked like a bunny mask with some ears or something. That looked really creepy. I thought that was cool, so that kind of drew me in. Also, I do like Alan Wake, and I've seen some references between the two. And I did enjoy Oddity, the other movie, including some sort of psychological powers and some sort of possessed puppet, along with the release of Longlegs. That's another one of those like duo releases where you have like Ants and Bugs Life and The Illusionist and The Prestige. I'm referencing Oddity and Longlegs here. But anyway, this is the same writer and director from Oddity, Damien McCarthy. He has some other works, such as Caveat, but Oddity was his real breakout movie here, and I think this proves that he knows what he's doing. Now, this stars Adam Scott. I absolutely love to see him doing more serious roles. I think Severance is probably the best currently running TV show right now, at least for the first 2 seasons. Even though he basically is the same character in most things that he's been in previously, the dude is absolutely hilarious. Step Brothers is among one of my most favorite movies ever made. Parks and Rec is great. Party Down was great. There's bound to be something of his in his portfolio that you will enjoy. Now, most, if not all, of the rest of the cast are from Europe, so I haven't exactly seen their other works, but I will say the rest of the casting choices were phenomenal. I gotta read their names here because I can't remember everybody, but David Wilmot as Jerry, he was a great, crazy homeless guy. Michael Patrick was a great asshole. Will O'Connell was a great, like, sheepish company man. Florence Ordesh was a great average worker who has a job just for the sake of having a job, but gets kind of pulled into the major plot. Now, there are a few things to mention about the plot here. I think people will think that this is more of a straight up horror movie than what it actually is. But if you've seen Oddity, you should know that Damien puts just enough supernatural elements into the story so that it's not the total focus, but it is prevalent enough to keep things interesting. It's grounded enough with an interesting B plot. Yeah, I know that's like the typical movie structure here, but I don't want you to think it's something along the lines of like Insidious, where it's like full-on horror, that kind of stuff. Now, Alan Wake is not a bad comparison here because Adam Scott literally is a horror writer that goes to some foreign location out in the middle of nowhere so that he can do some stuff and some spooky things happen. However, in this case, it is not to the extent where what he is writing comes to life. The writing of his that you do see, I thought was cool. I'm glad they didn't really delve into it more though, because we're already at like 1 hour and 40 minutes for the runtime, and I think if you did go down that rabbit hole, it just would have been a little too long. It's just something to note, because if you look at the classification for this movie, you'll see like witch horror, folk horror, supernatural horror, body horror, like a whole slew of terms being tossed out here. You get a little bit of like a horror stew. So if you're in the mood for some stew, you'll really enjoy it. And like I mentioned, you know, with Oddity and his other works, Damien just gives you that surface level explanation for most things. It's enough to keep you interested without giving you a sort of explanation where you might be like, well, that doesn't make sense. You don't need to know the details, just keep it rolling. So like a little bit of an intercontinental breakfast here. You know, you get a little bit of witch horror from this stuff with the hotel. You get a little bit of psychological horror there from Adam Scott's dreams, or are they? And you get a little bit of supernatural horror from some things that I'll mention in the riff section. And then just a little bit of cosmic horror with the Jerry stuff, which I'll also go over in the riff section. But, you know, just picture a little bit of Bloodborne's insight, you know, grant us eyes. Another thing to mention here is there is a lot of effort to make Adam Scott seem like an asshole. There are a few key scenes where you'll be like, I don't really like this guy. So it is a little bit unbelievable that he goes so far out of his way to help someone, and he goes really, really far out of his way here. But, you know, for the sake of the movie, it's all right. The relationships between all the characters, again, is explained at a very high level way, but it's good in that way because it leaves you with a little bit of a sense of mystery with the other plot elements that are going on. And there's not a ton of locations either. It mostly takes place at this Irish inn. And I couldn't quite get an idea of how big this hotel was. Like, you get to see some establishing shots of the front, and you get to see out some windows from some of the higher floors, but I don't think you get to see any scenes from the side or behind or anything. And some of these rooms were pretty damn big, and they have a dedicated bellboy to take people's stuff in and out. So I did kind of question, like, exactly how big is this building, especially with the lover's suite or the honeymoon suite, whatever it's called. And with that, there is a sectioned off part of this hotel. So I do kind of wonder, like, what are the building codes like in Ireland? Because there's clearly not many ways out of certain locations from this building. But you know what? This movie didn't have that type of marketing that's like, this is the scariest thing that you're ever going to see in theaters in your entire life, which I really appreciated. Like with Longlegs, that was way overhyped for me. I think that kind of detracted from the experience for me. This, they just kind of let it ride, and I think that really panned out. I enjoyed this movie. It was a good time, it was worth watching, and I will watch whatever Damien McCarthy cranks out next. But the one thing I wasn't too keen on here was there's this element of gun safety in the movie, but I'll touch on that later. Also, I think this is a more personal thing. I could have used a little bit more of the witch stuff. So with that, I think it's probably time to move on to the riff section. If this is your jumping off point, thank you for making it this far. Let me know what you think about all this. You know, leave a comment, leave a review on the Film Peaks app. It's free on iOS and Android. We move on. All right, we've made it to the riff section. This is your last chance to avoid any sort of spoiler before I show my score and give some thoughts. Okay, so this is what I thought of the movie. I thought it was pretty good. I was excited about it. I think it panned out. Good time overall. I do like folk horror. I do like Alan Wake. And I do like the idea of insight, like from Bloodborne, with the Jerry stuff where you could only see the supernatural if you are in the right mindset or state of mind, something to enhance your perceptors for supernatural things. I think that's pretty cool. But I also did mention I wasn't a huge fan of the gun safety aspect. Like, I get that we need a reason for Adam Scott to have some sort of traumatic event in his past to turn him into the current asshole that he is in the movie. So like the idea of him accidentally killing his mom, like it was played out well. Like the foreshadowing was really good with that, where in one scene he actually picks up the pistol out of like a wooden box at one point, and you're like, well, is he going to use that later? Why is that important? And you just don't know at the time that he accidentally killed his mom with that. So it was handled well. I just am not a big fan of that as the reason for him having trauma. I think trauma is the bad guy is a little bit overplayed these days. It felt a little bit like Silent Hill-ish, if you will. Now, I don't have like the perfect solution as to why he was traumatized. Like, you know, something should have happened to his mom so that she died young, and that his dad turned into an asshole and blamed him and whatever. I just feel like there probably could have been a better choice there. That's probably more of a personal thing. Let me know what you think. And then another thing, you know, from the conversation with him and Fiona at the bar, whenever he's talking about his writing, you kind of knew that there was going to be some sort of happy ending. Like, it wasn't planned, but he's going to change it, and it's going to end up being a happy ending, which it was. I thought the epilogue was a nice touch. It was cool to see the goats playing such an important role throughout pretty much the whole film. I just wish there was a little bit more of an explanation for the witch stuff. You know, we know she's down there. I want to know more about the mementos that were hanging from the ceiling. I want to know, you know, how long has she been there? Why was she in there in the first place? How did she get trapped down there? And most importantly, what is beyond those double doors to what appears to be some sort of spirit realm that she's chaining people and dragging them into? I did want to know more about that. If this is some kind of like real Irish folklore or something, you know, let me know. But, you know, what do you think? Is this good folk / supernatural / body / psychological horror? Leave a comment, leave a review on the Film Peaks app. It's free on iOS and on Android. Thank you so much for watching this far, and I'll see you at the top.